Hi, I'm Trisha at Club Scrap and welcome to our workshop. This is featuring our card kit called Chocolate. It's going to be a sweet time, I promise. Just as a fair warning, it's me and you and one fly in my studio today. So if he makes an appearance, just say hello and ignore him, okay? So I have my instructions here. I've got my chocolate card kit. Of course, I've got my accordion pocket file. Again, if you don't have one of these, just mention it to us. We can help get you set up with a little workshop and the materials required to make this. And the lip of this is just gonna sit under my trimmer base here. Speaking of, I've got my Fiskars trimmer also. This is probably my favorite tool in my studio. You can see how well worn it is. I've been using this one for many, many years, and it does a great job of trimming those papers. So for us to get started, I'm going to set aside the envelopes and all of the goodies here. We've got some fun goodies in this collection. And I just have my papers now, and let's get those papers sorted into the order that we will be trimming them. All right, so we're going to start out by finding one sheet of this vanilla. Oh, and it's just luscious. You're going to adore this beautiful ivory paper here. And then I want you to grab one red, and then one pink, and one brown. All right, let's do that again. Go back to the vanilla, another red, a pink, and a brown. Now that we'll be all warmed up from that, we're gonna trim our prints. So grab both of those beautiful prints from your kit and put them face down. Then find the cut-apart sheet that has the smaller sentiments on them. This one will say how many times do you have to click I accept cookies before they send cookies. That'll be next face down, and then this one with the larger sentiments on it, face down. So that's basically backwards, so we'll just flip everything back over to the vanilla, put that on top, and that's where we are going to begin. I'll just, I know it seems repetitive, but if you're new around here, you need to know about the grain direction of the paper. Eventually, we want to fold this paper into a card base. So what I want you to do is determine the grain direction by holding it at the center of one edge and studying the behavior of the paper. It's either going to feel stiff or it's going to feel flexible. You can compare by rotating one turn and checking this edge. You can see how stiff this is and how much more flexible this is. So I want the paper to flex easily from the top to the bottom of your trimmer base, okay? Let's do the same thing for the red. This is really heavyweight paper, by the way, so I want it flexing easily from top to bottom, and that it pushes in easily too. Okay, so take the vanilla and the red at the same time, stack them neatly together, and let's get started. I've unlocked my trimmer blade, and now I'm looking for 11 1/4. Now when you do that, just make sure your paper is nice and level over at the top. Make sure you're looking at the inches. That's 11 over here. That's 11 centimeters, okay? So 11 1/4. So that means I have to go to the left one column on this trimmer here. I've got all these columns. They mark the 1/4 inch. So 11 1/4. And before you slice, I want you to take your left hand, push down firmly on the bar, and then make your cut, okay? Now we'll slide down to 7. Make sure I'm level and stabilized, slice. Okay, now let's rotate the paper so it's horizontal, and we'll trim at 10. These will grow up to become card bases, and we're going to score them before we fold them. So let's set them aside in a separate pile to be scored. We won't file them quite yet. And then that leaves this little rectangular piece here off the end. We're going to go ahead and trim that at 6. There's a slight variance here in this paper. That's okay. 6 inches, and then place this long strip in pocket B. If you don't have the accordion pocket file, don't let that stop you from making the cards today. Just maintain 4 piles, A, B, C, and D. You have some little scraps here. You can do with those as you please. And then I will take this longer piece here and trim it horizontally at 11. Set this aside to be scored. It's going to be a card base. And take the little piece that fell off the end and place that in pocket C. Now, these 2 strips don't have an official assignment, but I'm going to hang on to them and put them in pocket D in case I decide to use them later on. Not so bad. Let's do that all one more time with 2 more sheets of paper. So I'm going to grab the pink and check my dip, make sure it's going from top to bottom. It pushes in easily this way. Same thing with the brown. That's pretty stiff. That doesn't want to do anything. This is nice. So stack those neatly together. And once again, we trim at 11 1/4. Stabilize. 7. Rotate and trim at 10. Set this aside to be scored. And then the other little strips we'll cut at 6. Pocket B and some scraps. The next larger piece we'll trim at 11. Here we have the base of the card that needs to be scored, and the little pieces that fell off the end for C, pocket C. And finally, the last 2 strips you can put in D for maybe later. Next, we're going to do the same thing now with 4 additional sheets, a different cutting diagram, but we want the dipping, the grain, or the paper flexing most easily top to bottom. And just to show you this, if you're new, these little arrows on the diagram here, that shows you the direction of the dip, okay? So not to confuse you, but the grain of the paper is actually running this way, but I found it's easier to just say dip it that way. Okay, we got the vanilla in there. Let's grab the red and do the same thing. So here's this is really hard to push in. This is easy. That's what we want. And our first cut here is going to be at 11. 11. Stabilize, really important for these heavier sheets. And then down to 6 1/4. Rotate and trim at 11 1/2 and 9. This needs to be scored, so set it aside. And then this next strip here we'll trim horizontally at 4. Place this larger piece in pocket B, and then the smaller rectangle in A. And these last 2 pieces can go in D. They might be scraps, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. And now we have this larger strip here. Let's trim this one at 5 1/4. So 5 1/4. And now, listen carefully, take the piece that's sitting there in the trimmer right now and rotate it. So it's vertical now, and we're gonna cut at 4. Take this piece and place it in pocket A. We have the skinnies that fell off the end going in A, and then the larger panel, C. Take this last 1x12, and we're just gonna trim that at 3 1/4. Place this in pocket B, and then the rest can go in D. And we get to repeat all that one more time with 2 sheets of paper. If you want to work with 1 sheet of paper at a time, that's absolutely fine. So I'm taking the pink and the brown, dipping them into the trimmer so that it goes top to bottom. And once again, our first cut here is at 11. Then 6 1/4. Rotate. 11 1/2. And 9. All right, this becomes a card base, so score that later. And take the little rectangle here, we'll trim at 4. We want this going in pocket B, and this in A, the smaller one in A. There were some little scraps that fell off the end for D, and this larger piece, let's trim at 5 1/4. Rotate so it's vertical and cut at 4. Pocket A, large panel for C. Now let's take that 1x12. Again, we're going to trim this at 3 1/4 here. And place this in pocket B, and the little strip now in D, the remaining strip. That completes the instructions for page 1 and 2. So now I will move on to step 3. We take 1 of the prints, just one, okay? And it doesn't really matter how it goes into the trimmer. I'm gonna just do it with the darkest portion on the right. I don't know if that's right or wrong. There's no right or wrong here, okay? So there's no wrong, it's only right. I'm gonna trim this at 11 3/4. Now remember, that's really gonna be close to the 12, way over here. So that's 11, 11 1/4, 11 1/2, 11 3/4. I was going left to grow the number, okay? Then 8. 8, 8, 8. Nice solid number there for you. And 6, again, another easy one. Okay, rotate the 6 by 12. We're going to cut on every even number, also nice and easy. So we'll go 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. Okay, so we're going to stack up all of these pieces. I'm going to try to keep them in order because I'm going to end up kind of pairing them up a little bit. So there you go. That'll go on one card. Putting those in B. Now this piece too, this is a 2 by 12. We're going to cut it in half at 6. These will go on the same card in pocket B also. Okay, now we have this larger strip. Nice easy cuts here. We'll go at 10 and 5. These rectangles for pocket A. And then we have this piece that fell off the end that can go in pocket D. I don't think I used it, but there's also this narrow strip here. We can put that in D as well. Some more easy cuts here on this next print. We started at the same measurement, 11 3/4, 8, and 4. Rotate the 4-inch piece and trim at 6. Both of these, pocket C. The same is true for the next strip. This is a 4 by 12. We'll cut at 6. Pocket C for those. Then for this last one, we'll trim at 10 and 5. Gather up the pieces the same. Those go in pocket A. And then we've got this little piece that fell off the end plus our strip for D. Okay, we've arrived at Cutaparts. Pay attention to the fact that there's a little guide marks in each corner of this print and with the instructions to remove the paper outside of those cutting guides. So let's do that. I'm going to place this in my trimmer, and for that initial cut, it's kind of hard for me to see the edge of the blade at the bottom of my trimmer because the paper is just a little too large for that. So I'm just going to do my best guess to trim, and oh, I got pretty close to the line, but you know, still a little bit of the line left there. I'm going to rotate the paper now, and this time I can see much better, both at the top edge of the blade and the bottom. So I'm going to make sure I do a nice accurate cut right here. Now another rotation, and I'll line up top and bottom, just checking the edge of the blade. Now at this rotation, I'm going to look at the 12 here on the left, and that lines me up with my lines on the right. And then I might just take a hair off, and a hair it was indeed. Let me show you what my trimmer did. If you have any doubts about using this trimmer, I think this should assuage your concern. Look at the work this trimmer can do in spite of its very reasonable price. So get rid of all those little scrappies. And now we want to place this in the trimmer so the text reads correct, right side up. How many times did you have to click I accept cookies? That should be in the upper left. Now our first cut here is at 10 1/4, and what I want you to do is let that paper just kind of pile up to the right of the blade. Then 8 1/2, 5 3/4, and 3 3/4. Rotate. So you'll be having these little things on the end, little beans, and I'm going to have you cut at 9, 6 3/4, 4 1/2, and 2 1/4. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 sentiments going in pocket B. Now we need to trim this into sections. I'll just put the beans on the right. All the cuts will be the same either way. And our first cut here is going to be at 3. Now continue to use your fingertip to stabilize this paper as we scoot it down. Now we're going to go to 2 1/4. Then 1 1/2. See how we do this? This trimmer works so well, even for these smaller cuts. And then 3/4. Now this is really going to be hanging out at the edge there. It's still under that stabilizing bar. Perfect. That was 3/4. All right, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. These are instructions for card set B. So just pop those into B, and then this can go in D. You can decide to use it or not. Now take this next piece. You can have that little label on the right here, and we'll trim at 9, 6 3/4, 4 1/2, 2 1/4. Now let's count 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 sentiments go in pocket A, and you can put this one in C. All right, now let's take this next one. Easy peasy, can go in either way. We'll just trim at 9, 6, and 3. Okay, all of these go in pocket C. Then we have 2 strips left. They're the same, and they get trimmed the same. All right, so we're going to go at 11 1/2 and 5 3/4. Repeat for the next one, 11 1/2 and 5 3/4. Okay, all 4 of these larger pieces now can go in pocket B. And then we have the 2 little sweets. I'm not sure where I use them. I'm just going to set them aside. They're so small, I don't even know if I'm going to put them in the folder. I don't want to lose track. One last sheet of Cutaparts, my friends. Let's go ahead and remove that perimeter again, just by lining up those lovely little hash marks as best as you can to give us a nice 12 by 12. And we added this task a while back because I just wasn't happy when on those big industrial trimmers, it wasn't always getting absolutely perfect because the paper would slide a little bit. And I don't have the easement there. This is calculated so carefully. I just didn't want it to be imperfect. So bear with me. Again, I'll get rid of those. And let's place it in the trimmer just as it's shown here. So Thankful for You should be in the upper right. Our first trim here will be at 8 and then 4. These are pretty easy cuts. Rotate. Dark chocolate should be on the right, and we're going to go at 10 1/2 and 5 1/4. That'll give us 2 panels for the insides of set A. And then this I used in C. All right, this next one, again, make sure all your little labels are on the right, and we'll start at 10 1/2 again, and then 5 1/4. 2 large panels for the inside of set A, pocket A. Now, on this one, I want you to place it in the trimmer so that hot cocoa is on the left. That'll give you just a little bit more to hang on to. And our first cut here is at 3 1/4. 2 1/2, 1 3/4, and 1. I apologize for all the little tinies here. 1. Okay. This piece you can just set it aside, and then these 4 go into pocket A. And then here we're going to just trim at 9, 6, and 3. Place all of these in pocket C. Now that the trimming is done, let's set our trimmer aside and swap it out for a score pal. I do like to use a stylus that has a ball tip on it, and I do carry a set of these. They're very inexpensive. They do a really nice job in engaging with the channels on a score pal, and if you're new to the score pal, just be mindful of that. And now we have this stack of papers. I'm just gonna stack them up neatly. We'll work our way from the top of the stack back down to the bottom. So on the top, mine is chocolate, yours would probably be too, and it's 6 1/4 by 9. You'll want to place that into the score pile, nudge it right up into the upper left corner of this base here, nice and tight. And I want you to score at 4 1/2 and 6 3/4. Okay, let's take that one out, put the pink one in. 4 1/2, 6 3/4. Then we're going to go to the red, 4 1/2, 6 3/4. You can feel the heaviness of that paper. So the heavier the paper, remember, the more firm you'll need to be when you do your scoring. 4 1/2, 6 3/4. Also a very heavy paper. And all of these card bases, all 4 of them, end up in pocket B. Now we have the longer skinny pieces. We're gonna go with the chocolate here. It should read 4 1/4 by 11. We'll score in half at 5 1/2. And then grab the pink, 5 1/2. Cool part is with these formulas, you can just grab any old paper from your stash and repeat the same trimming instructions, scoring at 5 1/2 on the red and the vanilla. And you'll make the same structure of card. You can even trim the cut-aparts to the same sizes and then just stamp on those panels. These are the bases for card set A. For this one, again, nice and easy here, we'll score at 5, and the paper is 7 by 10. Of course, we're putting it in there horizontally or the long way, and scoring at 5. We have the red, nice and firm on that one, and the vanilla, this is the last piece to be scored. We'll place all of these card bases in pocket C. And now we are ready to make some cards. Got my cutting mat here. I don't really need it. It just gives me a little bit of contrast on my work surface here and makes it easier for you to see what's going on. And I'm taking everything out of pocket A. All right, what I like to do initially is just organize what's in the pocket into the panels, or piles rather, of the same size. So I've got some printed panels here, some inner sentiments here, these smaller panels. I've got really tiny, 4 really tiny sentiments, and then we've got these other ones, some other panels. So again, I just like to get organized so I can see what's going on. Now we take the larger card bases and identify where the bump of the score line is, so I can feel the raised surface of the bump here. That's what goes on the inside of the fold. And I just like to remind my friends of that every time we make cards together, because I know a lot of people initially think, or maybe they've thought it for years and years, that the fold goes on the out, or the bump goes on the outside of the fold, but that is not true. The bump belongs on the inside of the fold. So if you look at probably the patent for the scored fold, that's how it's going to be, that this goes on the inside. It's just separating the paper fibers so that they lay down nicely. And you can maybe do a little experiment. So test the bump on the outside and the bump on the inside, see what looks best. It will be the bump on the inside of the fold. Okay, that was a long explanation while I was folding here. So now I'm going to distribute these 4 card bases. Let's put the vanilla in the top left. Then we have the chocolate and the pink and the red. Now each one of these is going to receive a plain colored panel. So let's put chocolate here, pink, red, and vanilla. Each one will receive a printed panel, and that should nest perfectly if my math worked out, and it did, thankfully. Each one is going to receive a smaller plain panel. So you can see I'm one by one adding more color to this. So we've got pink, we've got red, vanilla, and brown. Let's distribute these little anchoring strips. These would have been scraps, but we're going to use them. And so I'll do the red here, kind of continue to add the 4th color, right? The vanilla, the brown, and the pink. How about a sentiment? In the cookie of life, in the cookie of life, oh happy day, oh happy day. We've got these little chocolate labels, and I'm going to just stack them all up here. And if you happen to have a corner chomper, I'm going to spread the wings like this And on the side, it reads either a half or a quarter. I want to do the smaller rounding because these are pretty little. And I'm just gonna put them all in there on that 1/4 inch setting and round them. Kind of crazy to do all these. You don't have to do them all at once like I'm doing here, but you can because it's capable of doing it. How cool is that? Okay, and then you have those little marquee tags. So I'm going to take 1 tag for each card. And then 1 of these little chocolate labels for each card. Finally, we have the sentiments for each card. So that's going to be so thankful for you on the top 2. And then this is your fat-free, gluten-free, sugar-free, caffeine-free, peanut-free, carb-free birthday card. So I'm grabbing the smallest of the sets of envelopes. I'm going to place all of the items required for card 3 and 4 into the envelope. And then card 2, same thing. And we'll make the first card together since, again, all of the cards assemble in the same way. We don't need to parse that out for you. That wouldn't be very exciting. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my wax cord here. We can begin by nesting this panel onto our brown panel. I'm using my favorite ATG adhesive for that. Pretty easy to visualize a nice, perfect placement here. Next, I'll take this strip here and I'm going to add some adhesive to it. I'll grab my grid ruler and I'm going to place this in about a 1/2 inch from the edge of the card base. So the grid ruler just kind of helps me make sure that that piece is level and not leaning, you know, upward or uphill or downhill. Then I also need some of this herringbone ribbon. I'm going to cut a length just a little longer than the actual border strip. And I always keep my tape handy in a little dispenser so that I don't have to pick anything up to grab my tape. So I'm just going to stretch this across here, center it up nicely, and then bring those ends around to the back and secure with the tape. Okay. Here we have our sweet little sentiment in the Cookie of Life. I did try trimming out the sentiment, but I didn't like it as much actually. It lost some of the depth. You can choose to adhere this with foam adhesive if you like. I did mine just straight onto, and I placed it right in the upper right hand corner here. Now we have this adorable little tag, and I'm going to place some adhesive on this cute little label and place it on here so that the hole is on the left. Then you can take scissors and just like punch out that little hanging hole. And I'm going to double up a length of thread long enough so that it can wrap around to the back after it's been folded in half. I probably have more than I need, but you've got a lot here to work with. So I've got a double thickness of this, a double length. And on the loop side, I will just thread the loop through the hang hole here, just like a luggage tag. And then pull and grab the tail from the other side. Now, here is where I am going to use some foam adhesive. So if you want, you can use a whole entire dot, totally up to you. Peel the backing from the foam adhesive circle. I'm going to place this kind of toward the bottom here. Then separate the tails of the wax cord. Bring it around to the back. Once again, I'll grab some tape. Probably could have done that with one piece. And you can trim tails. Okay, now this is ready to go onto the outside of front of our card. Make sure it opens correctly from bottom to top. Have you ever adhered a card to your base in the wrong direction? I know I have. And then this is so simple. So thankful for you. We'll add this to the middle, the inside rather, and set A is done. So now this can go into your envelope. You're all set there with your sample. It looks so beautiful. And you make the others just like it. So I'll show you what those other cards look like. Of course, this is an exact duplicate, except for with different colors. And then we have the Oh Happy Day, same thing. We didn't change a thing. Just super easy, super simple. You're gonna love this little card. 4 of them and you'll be all set. Now let's move on to the B variety, or the 4 1/4 by 6 1/2 card. Now we arrive at set B pocket emptying phase. So that just precedes organizing phase. So you'll want to empty everything from the pockets, make sure you don't miss anything, and get your piles going. So I'm just going to do that while you do yours, and then we'll come back when this is all situated. So I've got my card bases all situated here, and you'll notice that there is a fold in the middle. So that's where we're going to start. And just, you can crease that. And if you want, you can make a little crease here, but it might just be easier to work with it initially when it's flat, and then make that crease at the end. I'll grab my bone folder just to give these a nice healthy fold. Oh, that red is definitely a heavier stock for sure. You're gonna feel it when you fold. Make sure you're burying the bump as we discussed. Okay, now let's go ahead and distribute. These will be horizontal cards. So I'll do pink and then brown, vanilla, and red. Each card receives 2 of these 2 by 6 strips. And then it will get one of those smaller rectangles. We'll go vanilla here, pink, red, and brown. Then Livin' La Vida Coco. And how many times do we have to click Ice Up Cookies? Next, we'll add a colored panel that's longer. So we're gonna go red, vanilla, chocolate, and pink. Again, we're incorporating all 4 colors, which I love to be able to do. Then I'm gonna do a brown, red, pink, and ivory, whatever hasn't been shown right here, right? And now we need our larger sentiment. May your day be filled with hugs, joy, and chocolate. And then today calls for something sweet. Lastly, we have the little instructions. So I had Jacqueline design these tiny little 3/4 inch pieces. Tuck the bottom edge of the flap against the inner panel to create a tent. There we go. Everything needed for all of the cards now. So I can take my A6 envelope. This is large enough to hold a card that measures 4 1/2 by 6 1/4. And now we can do our simple, easy assembly. It's never too early to nest these 2 guys. We'll get this kind of taken care of right now, but don't add it yet to the middle of the card. So I am nesting that. We can also nest this little instruction guy onto the 3/4 inch by 1 inch piece. Don't quite nest this yet. Let's do a little corner wrap. So we have this lovely pink ribbon here, and I'm going to stretch it across a corner and just cut so that it's large enough to make that stretch. Now notice the way the ribbon is curling. Like this is facing down. Well, it doesn't even want to. You can see that it has a natural curl, right? So with that curl, that's the direction I'm going to go when I wrap it around the corner. So I'm just going to angle that across here, place it on my work surface, grab some tape, and I'm going to do the same on the opposite corner. And that reminds me of how little chocolate boxes have the corners sometimes. The corners wrapped. It's reminiscent of that. Okay, now with the corners wrapped, I will add my adhesive to this piece. And the reason I did the corner wrapping before adding it is that you're going to be seeing the back side. You will be able to see the back side of this panel at some points. So I didn't want to have any tape showing there. Now we can add these printed panels, and you want to add them to the side of the card that has the little divot score line. You don't put them on the smooth side. You want it on the scored side. So I will add adhesive to the 2 by 6s here. And we'll place one. Now I'm checking margin top, left, and right. And then here I'm checking left, right, bottom. So it puts a gap in the middle. Then you can take this piece. Now make sure the card is opening from the bottom, okay? And we want to attach this to only the bottom portion of this scored area. Don't let it get into the top area. So the way to do that is if I want to just center this visually on the card, when I apply my adhesive, just make sure you don't go past the center, or basically I can just put a nice pile of it right at the bottom edge there. And I'm going to use my ruler to help me center this. So I'm going to center the ruler up here and do it an inch from the bottom edge. So I'm going to center my panel. That puts me at 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and an inch from the bottom. That's going to perfectly center onto my card. So once you make the crease, do you see how that pops up? Okay, and that's what reminds me of that Toblerone box. Well, how do we get that triangular shape? Well, it's going to be super easy. You're going to love this. Just take this inner sentiment and we will add it. This is kind of important. Hopefully you have some sort of a foam adhesive laying around. I do love these circles. And just make sure that you have a nice, healthy amount of foam. And this is a nice thin. It doesn't have to be that thick for that to provide a perch on which to rest the little pop-up. Okay, so I have my foam adhesive here, and this gets added to the bottom of the card. Just kind of center again like you did before, left, right, and bottom. Then you have your instructions. You can add those anywhere you want, but I'm going to put mine kind of in the center at the top here. Okay, now with that in place, when the card is closed, it lays perfectly flat, and when you want to display it, it will sit like that. Isn't that cute? I just love that. So, so sweet. Okay, now there was one last embellishment that was added, and it's one of these little bronze bars here. And you can see it has a very small amount of flat surface on the back, but that's okay. Then I'm going to take my bookbinding glue and run it along those surfaces that are going to come in contact with the paper. And I intentionally do this last. So when this is done, the card can be set aside and all of that glue will dry and cure it to the paper. And I'm just going to cover up the beans on the bottom of this and center it on there. Just give it 1 second to bond. You can put something heavy on top of it if you would like. And that should stay there just fine once dry. So I'm going to set this aside to dry. And you can see that all the other cards in the B set are made the same way. Here I have my little bar and the instructions on the inside. Now the difference here on this one is that instead of wrapping the corner, I just stapled a piece of folded ribbon so it kind of pops up in a sweet way when the card is open. Same thing for everything else. All the other assembly is no different. Again, just the stapled ribbon on those second set of the B cards. And we've arrived at our third and final set of cards. So let's go ahead and empty everything that's in pocket C. Now pocket D, you can empty everything in there as well and incorporate the scraps that remain. There aren't that many into your cards, or just dispose of them as you see fit. So I'll sort everything out once again, as is our MO. Okay, let's begin by once again folding our cards in half with the bump of the score on the inside of the fold. And a nice easy way to remember that little rule of thumb is just to remember the berry, the bump alliteration. The B of the bump goes with the B of the berry inside the fold. It's a good way to just help you remember in case you are prone to forget. All right, now let's take those folded card bases, and we'll place the chocolate here. These will be vertical cards. And then the pink, the vanilla, and the red. Each card will receive a colored panel. So we'll go pink, and then vanilla here, and red, and brown. Each one gets a print. Lovely. And then we have our outer sentiments. So nobody knows the truffles. I've seen, I love those. And then besides chocolate, you're my favorite. And then this one, the truffles gets the thinking of you. Then we have a sweet day, and you're the sweetest. For the inside, you can just distribute more colors. So if you have these longer panels, you've got red, brown, pink, and vanilla. And the shorties, you'll have vanilla, red, brown, and pink. This card receives one of those little label shapes, and then I just added one to this one. And each one will get one of those foil wrappers. Now you don't have to worry if the foil wrapper is creased or bent or crumpled or crinkled. It's not going to matter, trust me. So don't worry about it. If it, you know, gets deformed in any way during shipping, it doesn't matter at all, okay? So I will slide the contents required for all of the cards into the envelopes. This is the A7 envelope, size to fit 5x7 cards. And we'll make this last one together. Let's get started right away with our little foil wrapper. And what I want you to do is just crumple it gently and open it back up again and flatten it. Then it has more of an authentic wrapper-like look to it, which I love. And you could even emboss this if you wanted to, like run it through with a texture folder. I've tried it. It looks super sweet, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew you could make these cards without any extra special tools or equipment on hand. Okay, so then I'll take my printed panel and I'm gonna go up a little over halfway, I guess, here. And then I'm going to take this corner and just fold it over like so, just about like that, to make it look like it's partially unwrapped. Once I have that on there kind of straight, I'm gonna flip it over and just wrap the ends around. Maybe I'll start out with these shorter flaps here. And because this is so thin, it works to our advantage, right? It's so nice and thin. If you want, you can even do an actual mitered corner here and fold that up. Oh, I don't want to tear it there. And fold up on this. You can take some adhesive or tape. And this is not bulky at all, which is super nice for our purposes here. And just make sure that's all secured in place. Isn't that cute? I love it. Next, I'll take my detail scissors and I am going to go ahead, and this is optional, you don't have to. It doesn't take a lot of effort here, and they're easy cuts, very forgiving. So I'll go around the perimeter of this on the line, the shadow line here, and just remove the shape from the background. I love this sentiment. When we saw that, it was so funny. We had to use it. And I chose to put a thinking of you on the inside. Now, a word about inner sentiments. I get a lot of requests about, oh, I don't want that sentiment, or I don't want this sentiment. That's not working for me. First of all, you don't have to use it. You can just keep it blank, stamp your own sentiment in it, skip it all together. Maybe don't add it to the card for sure until you're ready to send it, right? You want to have this all ready to go, but you know, you don't have to add the inner sentiment if it doesn't work for you. Now I'll take some foam tape here. I only have 4 little pieces left on that strip that I've cut in half that'll still work for my needs, and place this in the upper left corner. Oh, it's so sweet. Okay, now I can add, and carefully add your adhesive to the back of this panel. And I think my reveal is 3/8 of an inch, so to the next panel. So all I need to do is just make sure I got 3 cubes here. 1, 2, 3. And now I know it's straight, level, and centered. Take this piece and add it to our folded card base. That's just 1/8 of an inch reveal, so I'm going to eyeball that. And since this fits, I will go ahead and add this. You could add ribbon to this if you wanted to, kind of zhuzh it up a little bit, but that's not even required. All right, now when I open this up, you can do a couple of things. You can trim this to 7 inches to make it fit. or you don't even have to do that. And I kind of like doing this a little bit better because it's hard to get these little strips the exact same length. So I'm gonna just come in here and cut a little banner shape into this piece and this piece here. Okay, so now I can do a little crisscross. So I'm gonna start out by taking my red banner, and once again, I'll have my ruler help me, maybe, I don't know, 1/2 inch from the edge here. Align it at the top and drop it in place. So I was resting this against the edge of the ruler to make sure it's level. Next, I will add my thinking of you. And then I'll add this ivory piece, and that's kind of serves double duty here. It allows me a spot to write my sentiment without having to grab a light colored pen. I can write it into the ivory area. And that's just a really sweet way to finish off that card. Super simple, no trimming required. Just cut your little banner shapes into the short end of one side, and you've got a sweet little finishing touch for your card. The next one, same thing with the crinkle, the fold, the foam adhesive to add this. Here I did cut it to 7 inches on the rest of these, so you can kind of see how that looked as well. This one I did cut the shape out. Again, that is totally optional. You can do it where you keep it whole, like this way, or you can cut out the shape for a little bit of a different look. Entirely up to you. Here I cut out the shape once again. It's just a matter of personal preference. Okay, that was the chocolate card kit. I hope you love these cards. I think they're so very, very sweet. Pun intended. Now, if you like the chocolate cards, you might like the chocolate pages too. You can make 8 pages from our chocolate page kit. So I invite you to pick up that collection. Join me for the 36-minute quick workshop where we will trim all the papers and assemble 8 layouts together. You can glue them down on your own time, just like the remainder of these 3 cards in set C for the chocolate kit. So if you're not already a member of Club Scrap, I want to invite you to subscribe to one of our kit clubs, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we are posting new workshops and videos regularly here. So we look forward to seeing you back here at Club Scrap soon. Thanks for joining me.